may, let me just ask you to get out there and win one for the Gipper.
Win one for the Gipper. Well, that was then. This is now, I suppose, in a few months from now, we'll have a new phrase. Maybe in a few days from now, I'll go out and win one for the Guzzler. I'm not sure. But I have a question for you on the Savage Nation. Afghanistan. I predicted a few weeks ago that there will be an anti-war movement in this country. It will come from the right. The left love this war. The left wing loves war. The left wing is The left wing is actually a warmongering movement. I don't think you understand that. They got us into Vietnam. It was the left. It was Kennedy that got us into Vietnam. It was a Republican who got us out of Vietnam. It was a Democrat who got us into World War II. It was a Democrat who got us into Korea. So make no mistake about it. The left has you bamboozled into believing they're an anti-war party. They're actually warmongers. Notice how they hated Iraq only because it was Bush's war, but they're silent when it comes to Obama's war in Afghanistan. Now, I'm not a Republican. I want you to understand that. I'm an American first, last, and always. But I want to know what we're doing in Afghanistan. We hear that the situation is deteriorating. We hear that Marines are dying every day, partly because of the U.S. strategy and the rules of engagement, where they're told to go over there and not shoot anybody until shot at. It's unbelievable to me. And now we hear that Admiral Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, wants to combat Afghanistan's culture of poverty. Now, I didn't know that the U.S. Marines were dying to end poverty in Afghanistan. In fact, I think that's actually almost obscene to say that. But the fact of the matter is, we're not supposed to be launching a new deal in Afghanistan. We don't have the money for it, nor do we have the moral imperative to do so. Moreover, there's never been a central government in Afghanistan. I have no idea why we're trying to build one now. And so, I ask you, should the U.S. leave Afghanistan? I'd like to hear your opinion. That's a very important question. We can also talk about the other topics that are in the news today, which is trickle-up poverty that is occurring under Barack Hussein Obama, the trickle-up poverty that I warned you about. We can talk about that. Where is Obama? Where is he? Where is Obama? I know he's at Camp David, and he's silent, and the media is talking about sports because his ratings have plummeted. They've tanked. The more America has seen of this man and his fanatical obsession with turning us into a socialist republic, the less they like of him. And that is why he's hiding. That's the truth. If you care to talk about these or other topics such as the release of the Lockerbie bomber and the celebration of his arrival in Libya and the salutations towards Gaddafi by the vermin in the media, you can call me at 1-800-449-8255. We know now that the British traded the terrorist for oil. We know also that the British put Michael Savage on the list of murderers and terrorists for oil. It's in my book, Banned in Britain. And the fact of the matter is that Britain cannot shake the accusation that the release of Libyan terrorist Meghari was related to a trade deal. And I am telling you that the reason they took an innocent man in the American media, Michael Savage, and put him on a list with real murderers and terrorists is because they were told to do so by their controllers in Riyadh. That would be my guess. And yet, it's interesting to me that very few in the American media are covering this story about a member of the American media, whether your politics are certainly different than mine. How could you ignore this story? How could you not see what's going on in front of your eyes? Then we have the obscenity of Representative Gerald Nadler wants to become the new inquisitor to investigate the CIA with regard to torture claims. This is almost obscene in the sense that Gerald Nadler would look good in black, in a black leather costume, playing Torquemada. But the fact of the matter is, for him to investigate torture claims borders on the obscene, truthfully. Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny McCaskill, so-called, continues to stand by his decision to release the Lockerbie bomber. ABC reports on the U.S. Marshals preparing to sell off Bernie Madoff's properties. What's interesting to me is that they're finally going to put up his estate in the Hamptons right after Labor Day. That means the U.S. Marshals were using the estate over the summer. Well, I mean, it was on official business. Them and their families, they had to go there and analyze the property. It only took 10 weeks. So the biggest con man in history spent his weekends in the Hamptons in a rather, obscure little bungalow, truthfully, on a nice piece of land, but the house is a nothing house. But for U.S. Marshal, it's a pretty good deal to get to spend the summer in the Hamptons pretending to be doing the people's business. 1-800-449-8255, michaelsavage.com. Hartford, Connecticut. Stephen, you're first up. Go ahead, please.
Michael, we've been in Afghanistan for 8 years, and we're no closer to winning or ending that war now than we were when it started.
But here's the question. Winning what?
Yeah,
winning what? What are we doing in Afghanistan? Why are the liberals gung-ho for this war? Why are Marines losing their legs and their lives for the corrupt Afghani leadership? Do you know that Karzai's vice president is a known drug dealer? Did you know that?
Yes. They want to keep this going, just like Iraq, probably for the no-bid contracts.
I want to repeat again that according to George Will, who is a fairly reliable journalist, I read this today, he says that the Economist describes President Hamid Karzai's government as such. He says his vice presidential running mate is a drug trafficker. And the administration is so inept, corrupt, and predatory that people sometimes yearn for restoration of the warlords, who are less venal and less brutal than Mr. Karzai. Why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we supporting a corrupt dictator in Afghanistan? That's one of the questions. I don't have an answer for that. Tell me, do you have an answer for that?
It's all about the money.
But why do liberals, like the mayors of liberal cities who claim to be anti-war, like any Newsom, why is he not marching in solidarity with the anti-war people against this war in Afghanistan? Why? Why is Mayor Bloomberg, not against this war in Afghanistan? Explain it to me. Because it's a Democrat war, and billions of dollars are flowing through the Democrat Party into the hands of contributors. That's why. So while the Republicans initially benefited from the war in Iraq, until eventually the Democrats screamed loud enough that they started getting the money, and then you heard nothing against the war in Iraq. Now we have a war in Afghanistan, and both parties again are feasting on it. Isn't that true? I don't know. I have no other answers for the question. Well, we could talk about other things. I'm not going to get stuck on this. It's the summertime week, the slowest news week in the year. It's so slow that even Wolf Blitzer of CNN has taken a vacation, and we're speculating where he might have gone. Everyone's off. Blitzer's gone. Leprechaun's gone. I think the wallbanger went to a gypsum factory to see how wallboard is made to brush up. I understand that the hemorrhoid with ears has gone to the Preparation H factory to investigate the manufacture of... No, seriously, where do you think a guy like Wolf Blitzer would go on a vacation? You know he's listening to radio and television. There's no way a guy like that... And where would the Lep go? Where would they go on vacation? I don't understand. I go on vacation, I can't be away from the news. You can't shut the televisions and radios off. Like if, let's say I go to South Florida, which I do from time to time, it's no secret. I have TVs in every room. I have a radio studio I go to. How could you turn off the news when you're in the news business? It is like a medication that flows through your veins when you're in this business. Where do you think they went is another topic. Where would the Leprechaun have gone on vacation? Where would the Wallbanger be? Where would Limbaugh be? Where would Blitzer be? I'd like to know what you think about where they would go on vacation. Let's talk amongst ourselves, because I'm not on vacation. I'm Michael Savage, and we're talking about the war and why we're in this war and why the Democrats have nothing to say about it. Sacramento, Jim, you're up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Michael, I agree with most of what you always say. I've listened to your show for a long time. But, I mean, Obama inherited this war. And I think the Democrats are still... Wait a
minute. Everybody knows this is Obama's war. It was his war to end when he became president. He had a clean slate. He said he would end all wars. He lied. He lied about Iraq and he lied about Afghanistan. You know, you can only blame Bush for so much. You know, Obama inherited $1 trillion deficit. That is true, Jim. We agree on that, I'm sure, correct?
Well, yeah, but he also inherited this war. Obama...
Wait, hold it. Let's take it a step at a time. Obama inherited $1 trillion deficit from Bush. And his cure for the $1 trillion deficit was to raise it to $3 trillion in 1 year. Did that make sense? So his cure for the war in Iraq was to amp up the war in Afghanistan by doubling the number of troops?
Well, that's what all the people wanted. The senators wanted that, so that was his first step. But I think ultimately...
Wait a minute. He's the commander-in-chief. What do you mean they wanted? He ran on a strict left-wing anti-war platform, and yet he has not only not withdrawn our troops from Afghanistan, but he's about doubled the number of troops there. But the bigger question, Jim, is why are we there? What are we fighting for in Afghanistan? Do you have any idea why men are dying and losing their legs?
Those decisions. When I say that we...
But Jim, hold it. Why are the Marines in Afghanistan? What is their objective?
To get them finally out of there, but they can't just drop what we've been doing.
Wait, to get what out of there?
Our people.
What do you mean our people? What people?
Sit there for years trying to help these people and then just drop